Just an additional thought of I'd like to get down here is as I'm thinking about it, perhaps so I don't forget it a little bit later, is this dramatic change that took place after sin was introduced into the universe. When Adam and Eve sinned and God cast them out, the Bible says that God said to Adam, he says, "Cursed is the earth, cursed is the ground for your sake." After Noah went through another cataclysmic event with the flood, and following that, God says, "I'm no longer going to curse the ground for man's sake." This level of curse is, and even with the animals were cursed to some degree as well. Because if you remember what God said to the serpent, he said, "You are more cursed than any of the other beasts." So they had received a curse. So in some ways, even though the serpent was even more cursed, this curse, again, as I mentioned, when man was around, death was introduced, what a change that must have been to his DNA and to his physiological makeup, his psychological makeup. The entrance of sin changes our thinking, and it changes our behaviors, and our behaviors change our physical attributes. But there was something I was just thinking about, even as the earth no longer brings forth this abundance of food, it brings it forth in a very strained and strenuous way. And even then, it's not bringing forth in its full capacity. And so, what kind of food was Adam eating the day before he sinned compared to the day after? Or maybe not the day after. This may have taken a month or two or sometime, but all of a sudden he's eating incredibly nutritious food that is powering his body. And now he's eating food that has been cursed, that has been grown without the full nutrient value, without the full value. Even as he's taken into his body's been changed in such ways that it can't handle even the food coming in like it had the day before. How would that have changed him physically? And how would the first sickness have changed him psychologically? How would depression have changed him? We know that those things change us physically. If you suffer from depression, over time, it will change you physically. I mentioned that earlier, people had always assumed when doing the research that there could be a biological or genetic foundation for people perhaps being born as a homosexual. And today, there's a lot of evidence that would say that that's not the case, that it is the undertaking of the homosexual activity that changes the genetic makeup. Pretty powerful research and evidence that is the case. But whatever the case is, think about what that must have been like. And I was just thinking about, even if you throw out all the other stuff, and you just talk about the change in the diet that Adam and Eve must have experienced immediately following the fall, how that would have changed them physiologically. And the grotesque sin that existed at such a level that God would have wiped out mankind, except for the fact that Noah found grace in the sight of the Lord. How sin of that depth and magnitude would have changed the physical features of those who are engaged in that sin. It must have been a horrific sight. There must have been monsters and demons in those days running around, not necessarily the way that we think, but just people turned into demons and monsters. Maybe not literally, but in terms of appearance. Wickedness and evil changes people. And so, just some other thoughts that I've had about what must have transpired. What was the ramifications, cataclysmic ramifications of that sin? And when you think about that, it is no wonder that the fossil record, if even if we accept the fact that it shows us change, which it does, but how looking at when we do look at fossils, how we would need to look at those skeletons and things in a whole different light, not one in terms of evolution, but rather in devolution, where they're going from perfect to incredibly savage individuals in a short time. Thank God for His grace, and that Christ reverses the curse, and things are getting better, not worse.